There's a silence no one talks about. Not the peaceful kind, the hollow kind. You've felt it in a crowded street, in a meeting full of smiles, in the eyes of someone speaking, laughing, nodding, but somehow not there. You sense it in the pauses between words, in the way certain people move through life like echoes, not origins, like copies of something once real, but long since forgotten. You try to shake the feeling. You call it vibes, or lack of depth, or just a bad connection. But deep down, you know what it is. Some people feel empty, not unkind, not unintelligent, just absent. They play the roles, they speak the words, but their presence doesn't resonate. It doesn't anchor. It doesn't ring true. And in contrast, you've felt the opposite too. The ones who don't even have to speak, and yet something in you softens near them. You breathe deeper. You feel seen without being looked at. They carry a gravity that's hard to explain, a warmth that isn't charm, a silence that isn't hollow, but full. What's the difference? Why do some seem to walk through life like flickering projections, while others move like something eternal lives inside them? The old world gave no answer. It told you everyone's the same, that what you feel is your imagination, that we all have souls, and we're all equally awake. But that's not what your spirit tells you, because your spirit has been listening for a sound that never came. You've been striking your heart against others, hoping they'd ring back. But too often, it's like striking a bell and hearing nothing. No echo, no resonance, just the dull thud of absence. And now you ask, maybe for the first time, what if the soul is not something we all begin with? What if it's something we're here to become? Because if that's true, if the soul is not automatic, not granted, not guaranteed, then everything changes. The people you couldn't reach, the relationships that felt hollow, the strange, aching distance between you and the world. It wasn't your failure. It was your sensitivity to the silence, your ability to feel who had awakened inside and who had not. And that sensitivity, brother, that ache you thought was loneliness, is the first sign. You are not hollow. You are one of the few who came here to remember, to awaken what sleeps in you, and to help the forgotten ones, the shells, remember what they could become. But first, and we must face a radical question, we were told from the beginning, everyone has a soul. Everyone is equal in spirit. Everyone carries the same sacred depth inside. But what if that's not true? What if the soul is not a default, but a development? Not a seed we all express, but a fire that must be lit. Because if that's true, then much of what we believe about the human experience begins to unravel. And in that unraveling, a new ancient truth emerges. The soul is not given. It is earned, forged, remembered through suffering, and most importantly, it is awakened. Not everyone awakens. Some people stay asleep, not because they are bad, but because they never step beyond the personality layer. They live in the surface self, the ego, the body, the roles, the mind. They function, they achieve, they even love, in their own way. But there is no inner witness, no self behind the mask, no spark lit in the holy center of the chest, just instinct, just echo, just patterned response. And if you've ever felt someone speak with all the right words, yet something in you felt cold when they said them, you've met that surface self. You felt the absence of the soul. Blavatsky wasn't the only one to say it, but she said it clearest. Not all who walk among us are spiritually alive. Some are still evolving toward soulhood. Others have refused the path and remain as astral cocoons. That's not judgment. That's not elitism. That is the law of spiritual development, that consciousness unfolds in stages, and not everyone is in the same place. The soul is not a human trait. It is a spiritual achievement, a frequency you must become capable of holding. It doesn't come with age. It doesn't come with intellect. It doesn't come with morality. It comes with fire, with internal collapse, with rebirth after ego death. And until that happens, many walk this world as if through glass, reflections of others, repeating what they were taught, Alive, Imam, but not awake. If this shakes you, good, because it means you can feel the difference. It means something in you is already waking, and once you accept that the soul is not guaranteed, you begin the most sacred journey of all, the decision to become what you were never given. It was more than a century ago when a woman stepped forward to say the unthinkable. Her name was Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, and what she revealed would disturb both science and religion. She didn't claim to invent a new truth. She claimed to remember one passed down from temples older than time, from initiates who studied not matter, but soul structure. Her message? Not all human beings are spiritually complete. Some are born as personalities but have not yet individualized as souls. They are not evil. They are not inferior, but they are unfinished. They exist as shells, prototypes of what a true human could become. She called them empty cocoons, soulless personalities, astral corpses. If left unawakened, even in death, they walk the earth. They speak, think, build families, hold jobs. But their center, that sacred chamber where divine consciousness should live, remains uninhabited. Blavatsky drew this from ancient sources, Vedic scriptures, Egyptian mysteries, Buddhist cosmology. She didn't create it, she unveiled it. That spiritual evolution happens in stages, and most are still in the early phases of what it means to become truly ensouled. In her doctrine, the monad, the divine spark, does not incarnate all at once. It hovers above, it waits, it watches the developing personality across many lifetimes until the moment comes. The moment of individualization, when the lower nature breaks open and the soul descends like fire into form. This process is not automatic, it is painful, it is slow. And most of humanity, she warned, is still in the phase of preparation, not realization. That's why the world feels so hollow at times. That's why you've sensed that something is off, that many are not responding to life with depth because they haven't yet awakened the part of themselves capable of depth. They are not evil. They are just unlit. And her warning was not to fear them. Her warning was this: do not mistake imitation for incarnation. Many walk in the shape of humanity, but only a few burn with the divine spark of soul. She was mocked, dismissed, feared, but she knew the echo would return in time. And it has, through you, because you felt the same thing. You've known there are people who look alive, but carry no echo when you speak to their spirit. You've seen the cocoon, and now you are beginning to see the truth inside it. Most people confuse the soul with whatever moves inside them. They say, I feel, I think, I want, I believe, and they assume that's my soul speaking. But what if it's not? What if what you call you is only the surface self, a temporary construction made of memories, instincts, fears, and borrowed opinions? What if the true soul lives beneath all of that, and you've barely heard it speak? The ancients knew this distinction. They divided the human being not into body and soul, but into layers. 1. The personality. This is what most people identify with. It's the I that forms around your upbringing, culture, experiences, and ego. In Theosophy, it's part of the kama manas, the desiring mind. It can be clever, it can be emotional, it can mimic depth, but it is temporary. When the body dies, the personality dissolves, unless something deeper has awakened within. 2. The mind. The mind thinks. It creates logic, belief, perception. It's useful, but it is not the soul. It is the instrument, not the player. The mind can be trained. The mind can be corrupted. The mind can believe anything, even lies if the tone is right. This is why you cannot trust thoughts alone as proof of soulhood. 3. The soul. The soul is something else entirely. It is not loud. It is not emotional in the ordinary sense. It does not seek applause. It is the silent witness, the gravitational core, the eternal flame, the I am that remains when everything else falls away. In Theosophy, this is the Atma Buddhi Manas, the higher triad, the union of will, love, wisdom, and spiritual mind. You do not have this soul by default. You become it. You embody it. You awaken it through suffering, sincerity, and spiritual alignment. 4. The monad beneath even the soul. There is the divine spark, the monad. It is the seed of God within you, timeless, silent, watching. But until the personality matures, until the ego breaks, until the mind quiets, the monad does not descend. It waits, patiently, lifetime after lifetime, for the human form to become a worthy vessel. And only then does it enter. Only then do you begin to truly exist. This is why so many feel hollow. They're not bad people. They're not broken. They are still living from the shell, from the mind, from the ego, from the inherited mask. The soul has not yet taken root. And if you've ever felt like your real self is buried beneath layers, if you've sensed that who you present isn't the full truth, then the good news is you're already awakening. Because to question the surface is to knock on the gate of the sacred. And once you knock long enough, something ancient answers. Truth never travels alone. It might wear different robes, it might whisper through different tongues, but when it is real, it repeats. And what Blavatsky revealed, that not everyone walking among us is fully unsouled, was not hers alone to say. Others knew it. Others taught it. Gurdjieff, the enigmatic spiritual teacher of the 20th century, taught something that stunned even his most devoted students. Man is not born with a soul. The soul is something one must create through conscious effort. He spoke of most people as automatons, machines operating through habits, instincts, and reactions. He didn't judge them, but he made it clear they were not yet real, not in the spiritual sense. Until a person developed inner unity, until they built a permanent I, they were like a house with no master. Alive, yes, but spiritually uninhabited. Steiner, the founder of Anthroposophy, echoed this same truth in his teachings on reincarnation and soul development. He taught that true humanity begins not with birth, but with individualization. The moment when the spirit begins to consciously incarnate. This doesn't happen in childhood, it happens later, when crisis, courage, and inner questioning open the path for the higher self to descend. Until then, the personality is just a shell, a preparation, not a fulfillment. You can trace this doctrine back even further. In Tibetan Buddhism, the concept of bardo teaches that only those with awakened consciousness continue meaningfully after death. Others return in confusion. In Sufism, the ego self, nafs, must be burned away before the soul, ra, can emerge. In Kabbalah, the soul descends in stages, and not all people activate the full soul tree in this life. Even Jesus in the Gnostic text says, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you." They were all pointing to the same thing. You are not a soul by default. You are a soul in potential, and potential is not identity. It is the door, but you must walk through it. Blavatsky saw this truth. Gurdjieff taught it in fierce language. Steiner gave it structure. The mystics wept it into poetry. And now you are hearing it again. Because the time has come not to believe it, but to live it. To stop assuming your soul is present just because your heart beats. And to begin the sacred work of calling it forth. You felt it. That dull ache behind your eyes. That strange disconnection. As if life is happening all around you, but not through you. You smile, you speak, you perform. But inside, something feels missing. Not broken, just incomplete. And you wonder, why do I feel so far from joy? Why does it all feel like I'm watching life from behind glass? Is something wrong with me? No, nothing is wrong with you. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are awakening. And what you call emptiness is not your failure. It is your sensitivity to the hollow. You are no longer satisfied with surface, no longer comforted by shallow conversation, predictable pleasures, false smiles. That emptiness, it's not depression, it's not dysfunction. It is the sacred moment when the personality no longer satisfies the soul. The lower self has run out of tricks. The ego has exhausted its games, And for the first time in your human story, you are feeling the space where the soul is meant to descend. Blavatsky warned us of the hollow ones, but she also offered hope. If you feel the hollowness, you are not the shell. You are the one hearing the silence. And only the awake can hear what the empty do not notice. So if you feel numb, if you ache when others laugh, if you sit in a room full of people and feel utterly unseen, let this truth hold you. You are not empty. You are clearing space for what's coming. The old mask is cracking, the soul is knocking. And what feels like absence is actually presence arriving. You're shedding the noise. You're releasing the false. You're making room for the one part of you that was never born and can never die. So do not fear the hollow feeling. It is not death. It is the first contraction of spiritual birth. The term is harsh. Soulless, empty cocoon, shell. It stirs discomfort. It sounds like judgment. But in truth, it's not an insult. It's a diagnosis of spiritual stage, a description of one point on the long road of human evolution. According to Blavatsky and other esoteric traditions, not all humans are ensouled in the same way. Not because of sin, not because of worth, but because of timing. Because awakening takes ages, and some are simply not there yet. What is an empty cocoon? An empty cocoon is a human structure without a fully anchored spiritual core. The body is alive. The personality is active. The mind may be intelligent, charming, even powerful, but the divine center is still dormant. The soul has not yet individualized. The monad, the higher spark, has not fully descended. And so, despite all appearances, there is a quiet absence at the core, like a temple where the altar was never lit. Do they know? Rarely. Empty cocoons are not aware they are empty. In fact, many seem content. They function within the world just fine. They succeed. They follow rules. They may even appear spiritual, repeating mantras, reading sacred books. But they are repeating, not resonating, mimicking, not embodying. Because the soul is not in the words, it is in the tone beneath them. And for the empty cocoon, that tone is missing. Are they dangerous? Not always. Most are simply incomplete, early in their journey through incarnations. But some can become dangerous when they pretend to carry light they do not possess. They become charismatic shells, persuasive voices with no rooted soul. And because they lack moral gravity, they can be hijacked by collective forces, cultural programming, or unconscious darkness. Not because they are malicious, but because there is no sovereign presence behind the mask. No inner compass, no awakened witness, only echo. What happens after death? Theosophy teaches that without soul individualization, the astral body disintegrates. The personality returns to dust. Nothing eternal carries on. The empty cocoon dissolves, Blavatsky said, because only that which has awakened can endure. Can they awaken? Yes. Always, but only through friction, through crisis, through moments that break the shell and cause something deeper to emerge. Until then, they remain on the surface, wearing names, playing roles, living out inherited desires, without ever asking who desires them. They are not villains. They are sleepers. And when you meet one, you'll feel it. The eyes won't hold depth. The words won't leave echo. The room will feel colder than it should. That is not your fear. It is your recognition, because something in you remembers the sound of soul and knows when it isn't there. The soul is not a passenger. It does not simply arrive at birth, fold its arms, and wait to be enlightened. No, the soul is a flame, and like all sacred fire, it must be called down. This is what the ancients meant when they spoke of spiritual individualization. It is the moment when the eternal spark descends from potential into presence. Not everyone reaches it. Not everyone chooses it. But when it begins, you will feel it in your bones. The descent of the monad. In theosophical teaching, the monad is the divine seed, the pure light of God, held in timeless stillness. It hovers above lifetimes, watching your growth through matter and mind. It waits, not for obedience, not for perfection, but for readiness. And that readiness only comes when the lower self begins to fracture. When the personality begins to break the personality, your ego identity must begin to collapse, not in public, but in the inner world. When what once fulfilled you begins to ring hollow, when the lies you told yourself start to burn your throat, when achievement stops numbing the ache and distraction loses its taste, this is the prelude to soul, not bliss, but breakage. The sacred crisis, then comes the moment, a death, a loss, a silence that lingers too long, a love that leaves you raw, a moment when your reflection no longer matches your memory. Something splits, and in that fracture, something ancient enters, a stillness, a presence, a gravity you've never felt before. It doesn't come with fanfare. It doesn't scream its arrival. It watches, and if you are willing, if you do not run back to the old mask, that flame will root itself into your center, and you will never be the same, from reaction to witness. From that point forward, you are no longer just reacting to life. You are witnessing it, not as the mind, not as the pain body, but as something higher, something that listens deeper, speaks slower, loves without panic, stands without needing to be seen. This is the birth of soul, and it is not a one-time event. It is a becoming, an unfolding, a slow, sacred marriage between the eternal spark and the temporary self. This is what the ancients called initiation, not a ritual, a transformation. Once it begins, you cannot go back, because once the flame is lit, the old shadows lose their power. And the cocoon, it begins to crack. Not to destroy you, but to release what you always were. You don't wake up one day with a certificate from the divine that says, "Congratulations, you've now developed a soul." The soul does not announce itself like that. It arrives in whispers, in changes you didn't ask for, in truths you can't ignore anymore. It moves like a breeze through the old scaffolding of your life, quietly pulling away everything that isn't real. If you are becoming soulful, you might not feel enlightened. You might feel like you're falling apart, but look closer. One, you begin to see through the game. What once thrilled you now feels flat. The games people play, the status chasing, the empty noise, the need to win, you see through it like glass. Not because you're better, because you're tired of pretending. You don't want to perform anymore. You want truth, even if it's quiet, even if it hurts. 2, you crave silence more than stimulation. You start to notice, silence feels safer than small talk. Stillness feels more like home than chaos. Not because you're antisocial, but because your inner world is becoming louder than the external one. You begin to hear things that don't have words. You begin to feel a presence within you that isn't just mood, it's guidance. 3, you can't lie to yourself anymore. Self-deception becomes impossible. What used to numb you now feels poisonous. You can no longer stay in rooms where your truth isn't welcome. You leave conversations earlier. You close tabs faster. You walk away not to escape, but to preserve your vibration. 4, you're drawn to what's timeless. Superficial things lose their grip. You find yourself reading ancient texts, listening to sacred music, crying at sunsets, asking questions no one taught you to ask. You don't care about trends. You're seeking the eternal. 5, you begin to feel others' absence. You sense when someone is present and when they're just playing a part. You walk into rooms and feel who's actually there and who's just wearing a body. You stop trying to force connection. You honor your sensitivity because you now understand your resonance is sacred and it cannot thrive in shallow waters. 6, you feel called, even if you don't know to what you can't explain it. But something in you is rising. A longing, a duty, a remembering. You're being called not to become someone new, but to finally be who you've always been. The identity beneath all masks, the flame beneath all roles, the soul. If even one of these signs speaks to you, you are not hollow. You are not lost. You are becoming real. And the ache you feel, It's not emptiness. It's expansion. You are outgrowing the cocoon, and soon the shell will crack, not to end you, but to let the eternal part of you step forward. It's tempting to ask, if the soul is real, why don't more people live like it? Why do so many stay shallow? Why do they chase the same things, speak the same hollow words, laugh at illusions that once comforted but now irritate you like static? And why, if you can feel so deeply, do they seem so unreachable? It can hurt, but it's not their fault, and it's not yours. It is the nature of the path. Awakening is not a right, it's a readiness. The soul does not descend because you want it. It arrives when you are ready to carry it. And readiness comes not from age, education, or even suffering. It comes from a shift in spiritual gravity, when the being turns inward for truth instead of reaching outward for validation. That turning is rare, and many simply aren't there yet. Most people are not avoiding soulhood. They don't even know it's missing. They're not resisting. They're not wrong. They're just still inside the dream, still fascinated by matter, still chasing personality growth, still believing identity is built from outside in. And that's okay. We've all been there. You probably lived lifetimes in that state, asleep to the soul, enthralled by the game, thinking pain was random and success was salvation. You weren't lesser then. You were early. Evolution cannot be rushed. Theosophy teaches that souls move through root races, phases of collective evolution across vast epochs of time. Some beings are simply in earlier stages, still integrating the body, still learning through karma, still stabilizing the mind before it can hold spirit. That doesn't make them wrong. It means they are where they are. Just as a seed is no less real than a tree, it is simply not yet what it will become. Compassion without confusion. This is the hard part. You must love them, but not confuse their echo with your essence. You must interact, but not entangle. You can offer warmth, presence, and care, but you cannot force someone to hear the bell if they have not yet developed the inner chamber to receive its tone. You are not here to fix them. You are here to become yourself, and in doing so, to leave a trail of resonance they may one day follow. So do not judge them. Do not pity them. Do not chase their awakening as if your light needs their reflection to shine. You are allowed to feel sad. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to mourn what could have been. But then return to your tone, because the soul moves not when it is pushed, but when it is called. In the modern world, we've made a tragic mistake. We've begun to worship personality as if it were spiritual depth. Charisma is mistaken for consciousness. Confidence is sold as truth. Wit, charm, cleverness. They dominate the stage, the screen, the conversation. And we assume they must be awakened. They must be soulful. Look how well they speak. Look how radiant they appear. But this is the illusion, because the personality can mimic light without ever having touched the flame. Personality is a mask, sometimes a beautiful one. It's made of learned behavior, cultural reward, survival mechanisms, old applause. It adapts fast. It copies language. It can even repeat the words of mystics with perfect tone and timing. But it does not resonate, because personality is not anchored. It performs, but it does not witness. How to tell the difference? The soul speaks slowly. It does not rush to be heard. It doesn't seek to win. It seeks to reveal. It may not be eloquent, but its presence rearranges the room. The soul carries gravity, not weight, gravity, a pull toward what is real. You feel safer near it, not because it says what you want to hear, but because you sense it cannot lie. Why mistaking one for the other is dangerous. When we elevate personality over soul, we create false prophets. We put microphones in the hands of those who echo depth but do not live it. They speak of light but can't hold darkness. They preach awakening but recoil from silence. They perform love but disappear when no one's watching. And worse, we start imitating them, trying to look awakened instead of actually waking up. The soul cannot be performed. It cannot be faked. It cannot be forced. It does not care for applause. It is born in the quiet, formed in the fires, carved into being by 1,000 silent choices to choose truth when no one's looking. You'll know it when you meet it. Not because it shouts, but because something in you stops pretending in its presence. So be careful, not suspicious, just discerning. Not judgmental, just awake. Don't confuse brilliance for wisdom. Don't mistake articulation for embodiment. Don't follow the loudest voice in the temple if it doesn't ring like truth in your chest. Because personality ends when the lights go off. But soul keeps burning in the dark. We all wonder what happens when the body falls silent, when the breath slows, and that final exhale leaves behind only stillness. Where do we go? What remains? The world gives many answers. Heaven, reincarnation, nothingness. But the esoteric traditions speak with quiet certainty. What continues after death depends entirely on what was alive within you before you left the body. The soulful leave with light. When you have awakened the soul, when you've lived from something deeper than ego and role, death is not an end. It is a transition, a returning, a shedding of density. The soul moves into the subtle realms, carrying memory, presence, wisdom. In Theosophy, this is the journey through the Devachan, the inner worlds of the soul, where the being rests, reflects, prepares. There is peace, there is learning, there is continuation, because what was real in you cannot die. But the hollow return to dust. For those who have not awakened, death is different. They live from the surface, from instincts, beliefs, emotion, reaction. And when the body drops, those things dissolve. The personality fades. The echo dies with the form. Because there is no soul to carry forward, no spiritual gravity to preserve the thread of identity. Blavatsky called these beings astral corpses. They do not suffer in some hell. They do not face eternal punishment. They simply disappear, not out of cruelty, out of cosmic law. Only the ensouled can endure the fire of transition. Reincarnation is not guaranteed. We assume we'll be back, that this life was one chapter and the next is waiting. But in esoteric law, only that which develops continuity of consciousness reincarnates in a meaningful way. Otherwise, the energy returns. The karma continues, but the person does not. Only fragments remain, like smoke from a candle that never truly lit. Death is not the end, but it is a mirror. It reflects exactly what was cultivated in silence. Not your image, not your titles, not your followers or fame, but your inner vibration, your soul tone. If you live from it, you carry it forward. If you never found it, you begin again, from wherever your last choice left you. This is not meant to frighten you, it is meant to free you, because the real tragedy is not death. The real tragedy is never living from your real self while you still had the chance. But if you're reading this, if your spirit is stirred, if something in you knows this is true, then it's not too late. You still have time to light the altar within, to awaken what can never die, to become what continues. We've spoken of the hollow, not with hate, with understanding. But now you may ask, if they are empty, why do they sometimes feel so heavy? Why do certain people drain you? Why does your energy shrink in their presence? Even if they smile, even if they speak well. Why do you leave some conversations feeling like something was taken, even though nothing was said? The answer is not in their words, it's in their vibration. Because the soulless are not neutral, they are porous, and empty vessels can be used. The hollow attracts the collective. When there is no inner center, no rooted soul presence, the human structure becomes available to instinct, available to the unconscious collective, available to trends, groupthink, even darker currents. This doesn't mean these people are evil, it means they are unanchored. And what is unanchored drifts toward the strongest current. In some, that current is cultural programming. In others, emotional manipulation. In rare cases, something truly malicious can move through them. Because there is no awakened witness to say no. What you feel is not just personality. It's easy to say they're just intense. They have a strong energy. They're difficult, but your body knows better. Your chest tightens. Your nervous system contracts. Your soul, if awake, feels pressed down because there is no resonance, only consumption. And when you stay too long in that field, your own tone starts to dim. The power of spiritual discernment. This is not about judging others. It's about preserving your resonance. You are not here to fight the hollow. You are not here to convert them. You are here to embody soul so fully that those without it feel the difference. Not through force, through frequency. And if you sense that someone is not responding to truth, not feeling their own heart, not rooted in presence, you do not owe them your light. You can walk away, not from fear, from wisdom. The soul cannot be hijacked, but the personality can. If your soul is rooted, you are safe. You may feel drained at times. You may forget yourself in their field, but you can return because you have a center. But if you're still becoming, be careful, not afraid, not isolated, just aware. Because there are people who don't just lack soul. They mock it. They resist it. They mistake it for weakness. And when you stay too long in their presence, trying to be accepted, you begin to abandon your tone. You are not here to rescue them. You are here to resonate so clearly that your very presence awakens those who are ready. And for those who are not, you offer them silence, distance, grace. But you do not shrink. You've heard the truth. You've felt the hollowness in the world. You've sensed the difference between real and echo. And you've begun to ask, if the soul is not automatic, then what awakens it? What brings it fully into me? The answer is not a single moment. It is a sequence of sacred thresholds. No one awakens by accident. The soul descends through conditions that are rarely comfortable, but always holy. 1. Truth you can no longer ignore. It begins when something small snaps inside you. A phrase, a silence, a look in the mirror, and suddenly you cannot unsee what you've seen. The job you thought mattered feels false. The version of you that once got applause feels hollow. You stop running, you start hearing, not with your ears, with your being. This is the first light. 2. A crisis that breaks the mask. Almost every soul awakening is preceded by something that cracks you open. Loss, illness, heartbreak, failure, a moment of deep, unbearable stillness. It feels like the end, but it's not. It's the preparation for descent, because when the mask breaks, there is room for something real to enter. 3. The surrender of the false self. The soul cannot inhabit what the ego still clings to. You must let go of who you thought you were, of who you tried to be, of what the world applauded, but your heart quietly rejected. Surrender is not weakness. It is alignment with the greater self you were sent here to remember. 4. Stillness that reveals the flame. After the collapse comes the silence, and in that silence, you don't feel lost. You feel closer to something, not a voice, not a being, a tone, a resonance, a sacred weight. It doesn't demand, it doesn't promise. It simply waits for you to recognize it as yourself. And when you do, the soul roots itself deeper, like light anchoring into matter. 5. Living by that flame, even when it costs you. This is the true beginning, not a moment of insight, but a life of devotion. You choose truth when it's inconvenient. You stay silent when performance would get you praise. You speak love when anger would win you the room. And slowly, the soul trusts you. It knows it can stay. Because you have chosen not just to awaken it, but to live it. There is no shortcut, but the path is pure. Because everything that awakens the soul does so by burning away what you are not, so that what you've always been can finally be seen. You don't call the soul with your mouth. You call it with your life. And if you do, and it will come. It's one thing to talk about the soul, to read the words, to feel the resonance, to cry at the beauty of remembering. But let this truth pierce gently. The soul does not care what you believe. It watches how you live. Because belief is easy. It changes with mood, with influence, with new information. But embodiment, that is the rarest thing on earth. Knowing is not being. You can study sacred texts, you can quote mystics, you can speak the language of awakening fluently, and still live from the ego, respond from fear, hide behind spiritual identity instead of becoming real presence. Knowledge is not soul, only frequency is soul. Frequency cannot be faked. You cannot pretend to be what you have not become. You can fool others, but not resonance. You walk into a room and people feel what you carry, even if they can't explain it, even if they don't believe in any of this. The soul is not seen, it is sensed, and if it's not embodied, it's not there. The test is in the moment, not when you're meditating, not when you're reading this. The test comes when you're tired and someone needs grace, you're triggered and truth is quieter than anger. You're alone and silence starts to echo too loud. You're asked to choose between comfort and integrity. And in those moments, if you choose love, if you choose presence, if you choose the deeper tone inside you, you are living from soul. The soul is a practice. It must be chosen over and over again, in thought, in speech, in relationship, in silence. It is not performance. It is not perfection. It is returning to your tone every time the world tries to pull you into noise. And with each return, the soul grows stronger in you, not louder, stronger, like roots you can stand on when everything above you sways. So do not mistake knowing for becoming. Do not settle for belief when being is possible. The world is full of souls still sleeping beneath ideas. You came here to live the soul so fully that others remember they have one too. This is your call. This is your path. The soul is not what you have. It is what you choose to become. In every sacred moment you walk in truth. There's something I need to tell you, something that may contradict the voices in your head, the silence in your heart, and the doubts you've carried like bricks on your back. Are you ready? You are not hollow. You are not too late. You are not behind. You are becoming. That ache you feel, that weight in your chest you can't explain, that's not emptiness. That's expansion. It only hurts because the shell is cracking. You thought the ache meant you were failing, but it wasn't failure. It was the soul knocking. You couldn't stay distracted. You couldn't go numb like before. The things that used to satisfy you began to ring false. Why? Because your system is no longer wired for smallness. Your spirit is reaching for light, and it's hitting the limits of your old self. The ache isn't emptiness. It's pressure from within. You thought you didn't belong because you walked through crowds and felt alone. You listened to people talk and felt a silence behind their words. You laughed when you were supposed to, but inside something stayed distant, and you thought, what's wrong with me? Nothing. Nothing is wrong with you. You are not broken. You are awakening. Becoming is messy. It doesn't come with a halo. It comes with confusion, exhaustion, sudden clarity, long nights, moments of pure presence followed by days of forgetting again. And that's okay. Becoming isn't linear. The soul grows in spirals, each loop bringing you deeper, closer, quieter, until one day you realize, I don't have to chase light, I am becoming it. The fact that you're here means you've already chosen. You didn't find this message by chance. You didn't stay this long out of curiosity. You stayed because something in you recognized the truth of your own becoming. That quiet center you've been avoiding, that's not fear. That's you, emerging. So let this be said once, clearly and forever. You are not empty. You are becoming. You are not behind. You are breaking the shell. And on the other side is the you that never left. The you that came here to awaken. The you that walks the world not looking for light, but carrying it. There's a reason you're still here. Not just in this script, not just on this page, but on this earth now. You've questioned everything. You've doubted your worth. You've wandered between worlds, never fully belonging to noise, but never quite understanding why. It's because you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to resonate, to carry a tone so ancient that those who've forgotten begin to remember just by standing near you. You are not just becoming a soul, you are becoming a signal. There are others, quiet ones, watching, numb, doubting, empty but not beyond reach. They do not need more noise. They do not need more ideas. They need presence. They need tone. They need someone who has lived truth silently enough to make them curious again. And that someone is you. The light you carry is not for you alone. It was given to you so that it could be given through you, not in sermons, not in lectures, in how you walk through pain, in how you hold others without fixing them, in how your eyes say, I see the soul you forgot you have. This is how the hidden ones awaken. Not through argument, through recognition. The final choice. You can ignore this. You can return to scrolling, to acting like it was just a beautiful idea. You can wrap this moment in memory and never let it change your life. Or you can say yes, not to a religion, not to a role, but to the part of you that came here already lit, but buried beneath years of forgetting. Say yes to that. Say yes to walking slower, to speaking with more weight, to holding silence like a prayer. And from that place, others will find themselves in your reflection, not because you saved them, but because your soul gave them permission to come alive. Like you were not born to perform, you were born to remind. You were not born to echo the hollow. You were born to ring like a bell and awaken the sleepers not with sound, but with presence. So go, not louder but deeper, not to explain, but to embody. The soul is not an idea, it is now you, and the world is listening.